Okay, so I am re-recording this because my wired mic had some issues. Anyway, um, okay. So tonight's topic, we're going to talk a little bit about secularism, about speciesism. I don't, and about artificial intelligence. Now, I think a while ago when I felt like more people didn't understand what was happening, I talked about the PayPal mafia. I think the PayPal mafia is kind of important to chat about now, just because so many of them have quite a lot of power in terms of artificial intelligence. Now, the reason that artificial intelligence is important, um, it's important because so many algorithms, so many systems, so many of decisions really that are going to impact the future are going to stand on things that have happened in the past. And a lot some of it will be positive because it will be able to like correct wrongs, but some of it will be negative because we won't correct wrongs. I think the legal field is where this like plays out kind of um intensely. Is that a way to say this? um we have uh, so many of the legal issues of the time are being decided based on laws from the past. And if you are able to read over the dockets and like look at evidence and all of that from the past, it becomes evident like why certain outcomes were made. So you can just look at prior cases, prior outcomes, prior laws to see like, okay, how should we rule on this in the future, right? Now, some of this is rough because I think, and I'll say it again, I think Tech Lead made the best comment on this. It's always the winners who tell their version of history, and they write the history books, based on their personal interpretations here. Now, I just saw the talk, or basically Elon Musk was at I guess it was like a New York Times book summit, and he gave like a 2 hour talk where he unpacked quite a lot. Now, I'm not exactly sure what happened, but what I feel like happened is like there was some tweet, and Elon Musk basically liked the tweet. The tweet had an anti Semitic sort of grip. Um, and so people were calling Elon anti-Semitic, and then more recently, like 2 days ago, Elon went to Israel, and he I think met with like the prime minister. Um, and so he was clarifying a bunch about that. Hold on a second, I'm gonna actually look this up. Um, let's find the tweet. So I can't. I don't know what the. I'm trying to find the actual tweet so that I'm not. Okay, well, so basically, here's what it says. First, Musk drew attention to and agreed with an anti Semitic conspiracy theory and then directly accused Jewish communities, the nonprofit Anti Defamation League, and minorities of what he called anti white messaging and views without giving examples to support his accusations. Um, I don't. I feel like I've actually said this before. Like a lot of Jewish communities do seem to think that like every single thing is like anti-Semitic because they're like reading into it. And I would say about 50% of the time I agree that the thing that's said is anti-Semitic, and then obviously the other 50% I feel like is just it's the same way that people talk about like black things, right? They'll do things that are like coded in like race talk, and black people who are like oversensitive to a lot will be like, that's racist, it's anti-black, blah blah blah. And like 50% of the time, like it is, 50% of the time is probably not. So the groups who have been marginalized kind of, and I feel like this might be the first time that we're actually seeing white people be like a marginalized group in terms of like media representation and really just sheer numbers. I mean, on planet Earth, white people are already a minority, but they've had the most wealth, access, and power. So they've been hyper visible. But now, with social media leveling the playing field, a variety of celebrities, people who are non white are also becoming like celebrities and they have a lot of power and influence in media. So I feel like the shift in power has caused not all, but like some white people to feel like minorities. But there's a whole other conversation where Elon Musk talks about it in this interview, and I think it's interesting. I feel like for myself, I'm not gonna say I've been like a eugenicist, but kind of. Kind of. A lot of my feelings are extreme, like, or in the past have been extreme. Like I said, where the way that I grew up, it was very, very, very much so like um just pro black nationalist, like black people are better in all the ways, like it's just like black is just the best. Black people have invented everything. Like that's just the way that I grew up, and so that and all of my context like came from that particular lens. And then it was also really strange because I wouldn't say that I grew up like this, but I was exposed to a lot of like white supremacists who like in their actions almost tried to like berate and degrade my personal ideology to prove that like actually they were better. So it was this constant dichotomy of like battling white and black supremacy. I can't even talk about people of color. Like that's just not a conversation I could even partially have because I don't understand those stories and that history. Like I don't know. I don't know. But Elon Musk brings up this point that so he starts talking about Sam Altman being ousted from OpenAI and this researcher Ilya at OpenAI, and he talks a little bit about why. So Elon Musk is one of the founding people of OpenAI. The reason that he put money into OpenAI was because he said he saw this monopoly happening with Google, where I don't know if he said it was Google and Microsoft, but I know it was Google, and this is actually kind of a really um it's actually a really problematic thing, but I don't know if it's a bad thing. So here's the big idea. Google has all the data. I mean, like Google has like all of the data. Like it just has all the data, and you can like they have huge research departments, huge research departments that are that house the biggest names in artificial intelligence. They just do. They just do. Now, um, there are particular sects, we'll say, of like artificial intelligence is like this big idea, not an idea. It's like, but it's a concept that I feel like people are talking about, especially like how do you say, like layman people, civilians. Okay, they're talking about artificial intelligence like they know what it is, like they are, knowledgeable about the algorithms, and they're not. They're not. There's a lot of different. There's a lot of different aspects of artificial intelligence. The big idea is like models are able to learn from data, okay, and then use that data to make decisions in the future. OpenAI specifically and Sam Altman specifically believes in artificial general intelligence. The big idea there is like I the algorithm can learn from itself. Like you actually don't need any additional, like once you have us, and we have kind of a lot of training data, a lot. Um the big idea is the algorithm can kind of like learn from itself. That's the simplest way to say it, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. And OpenAI has been working toward that. And they had this moonshot goal. Oh, we think we can get there in this particular amount of time. But they've been having they partnered with Microsoft. And this actually wasn't that long ago. This had to be was it like 3 or 4 years ago? Maybe it was a little bit longer, 4 years ago. But that enabled them to have a lot more access to compute. And in order to train these algorithms, you need like compute power, like actual hardware that can run the software. And with the Microsoft partnership, they were able to get that. And then they recruited some of the biggest researchers from like Google and other places to like train the algorithms, to build the algorithms. And they had some pretty major ones that also included like reinforcement learning. A big part of like reinforcement learning and the real world, deep reinforcement learning, that's kind of the area that I was hyper focused on when I was interested. The big idea is like reinforcement learning is applicable in terms of robots, because you have like a robot that is interacting with the real world. You could also think about this in terms of like the smart cars, self-driving systems, things like that. Reinforcement learning, deep reinforcement learning become really important when you're talking about that. So like the robot needs to get feedback from the real world, interpret that feedback, and then decide what to do. That's like a super simplified version of kind of like what reinforcement learning is, but whatever. Like that's the big idea. Now, in all of these algorithms, even if we're not talking about reinforcement learning, what I saw that sort of made me feel like I don't know if it would be more effective to stay in this field as opposed to kind of being like a social engineer. And I feel like I've done that in other ways with my Finstagram accounts. What I would do basically is make an Instagram account, a Finstagram account, and I would always get like a variety of people. Some of it were my stalkers, which was very interesting because I've done a lot of like international travel, so I think I've got like stalkers internationally too. So imagine like if you actually had no idea what like a black person is, like a black woman, a black American woman, a middle class black American woman. You just have no idea what their actual life is like, but you're interested to know. Now, for me, it was very strange because of all of the intersectionality around my own life. Like, it wasn't simple. Like, no part of my lived experience is simple. And the really strange part about that, with, like, America being as, like, racially segregated as it is, like, even a lot of Americans, like white Americans, Latin Americans, they have no idea what my experience is like. They don't know. There's no show. There's no, like, I wasn't really talking about myself on YouTube, right? Like I am now. And so what I realized with those Finstagram accounts was like there was a real need for people like me to tell our stories. I feel like at this point, how do we say it? Like mission complete or whatever. Like, we definitely have gotten to the point of like, oh, okay, I feel like we have like a nice amount of representation now, and stories that I feel like were not being told are now being told. Um, but in terms of whatever's happening with OpenAI and whatever they have found, I think people should be frightened because I know for a while Sam was talking about like the real um how do we say the real not possibility, but like the outcome of providing free money to humans so that the algorithms could do the hard work that people are doing when they lose their jobs to artificial intelligence, which is something people talk about being like very far in the future. But in places like Silicon Valley, I don't think it's going to be that far in the future. It's probably going to be like pretty soon that happens. And I think that there's this idea of like retraining. Oh, okay, so we can like retrain people. But if you paid attention at all to like what's happened in India, where we have like so many like living people, and they like even though they are like literally using and they have so much education, so these are like smart people. There's just too many of them, and it's like there's just too much poverty. Like they just haven't been able to develop, even though they have so much education. So education alone isn't going to solve the problem. So then, like, what's going to solve the problem? So now we have to get back to this point that Elon was making about like speciesism, when I guess he was like friends with one of the Google founders, and their friendship sort of fell out when Elon started to understand that like he was a humanist and the other Google founder called him a speciesist because he's putting humans over other species. And the way that like Google and I feel like OpenAI is becoming like this as well. Like I feel like Sam's kind of money hungry. Like he's going to turn anything into profit. He's going to turn anything into money. Like he could turn a dust fairy into money. Like I just feel like that's probably who Sam is. And I don't know if that's a bad thing in a place like capitalist America. It's probably a good thing. Um, but uh, in terms of Elon Musk, like it really does seem like Elon Musk is a humanist. Like he really wants the human race to survive. He cares about like people. All of the talks that I've heard, to me, that's very surprising. I did not know that is how he felt. Like, I guess I just never took the time to, like, understand morally or ethically, like, who he is. To me, he seemed just as, like, capitalistic as Sam. But now, I guess, like, in this talk, he made it very clear, like, I am a humanist. Well, actually, I guess it's been clear for a while. All those children that he has, he just has like so many children. It's like, why? Why? Mm. Anyway, he's like the male version of like Nick Cannon. They just believe in like populating the planet, and I don't understand. It's like why we don't. Whatever. Uh. I think on the other side of like I'm not a humanist. Like I honestly feel like there's too many people on the planet. There's not enough resources, and people can't really. To me, it feels like people can't figure out how to like live together in harmony, and um, the fewer people there are, the more peace we will have. That's how I feel personally. Um, So yes, I'm not on the team of humanism, and I also feel like mm, that's very cute. um um okay, I'm going back. So what does all of this mean? And I feel like maybe in terms of this audience, it might be useful to start a segment that unpacks particular researchers, their fields, and why you should care. Like how their research is impacting humanity. I also am very fascinated to see, like, in the coming weeks, what the hell it is that what breakthrough OpenAI has had. It found something, and it's probably found something that um, is very relevant to artificial general intelligence. Um, I don't know how I feel about this. I was going to talk a little bit about secularism here and how that relates to all of it, but here's the basic idea. I feel like there are a lot, not a lot. Well, actually, that's a fair assumption. I feel like there are a lot of people who live their lives based on their religious preferences. And a lot of these people have origins in the developing world. Okay. And secularism is this big idea that as societies become more and more modern, there's less need for religion because people can use their own ethical compass to like make decisions in the real world. Especially when you have like algorithms and you have modernity, okay, and you have like creative pursuits. Really, why, if you are an ethical person, why do you need God to tell you what to do? I feel like it's kind of on the path, the people, the men, the women who are talking about why there's not a need for marriage. I saw Michael Knowles made a video about this today where I guess he was so shocked that people were talking about marriage like this. I thought it was weird because, like, I kind of agree with them. Like, we really, I mean, unless you have like a woman, basically like a poor woman, or not even just like a poor woman, but like if you really think about it, if a woman has just come out of like high school or just graduated college and she hasn't started a career yet, she doesn't have like some pot of wealth unless she's like a trust fund baby, in which case, okay, yeah, she has that. But if she's not like a trust fund baby, then she hasn't like actually accumulated any like assets for herself yet. And so if she's like literally gonna like dedicate the next, I don't know, 10, 20 years to being like a mother to a man, you know, like she needs some financial security and a marriage contract. There's one episode of like Ben Shapiro where he talks about like it's like this Jewish ceremony and like the cost of divorce or something. He made a clause in like their marriage clause where like if they get divorced, it's going to cost him like $50 million or something. It's going to be very expensive for him to get divorced. So I feel like if that were the case where there were like a real like a financial backing that would incentivize people to remain married, like marriage is definitely not, it's partially a social contract, but more so it's a financial contract, and a lot of people just don't have the assets. So it's kind of like, what are you doing? Like, you're not, I'm not saying nobody cares about poor people's marriages, but kind of.